There was a time when all wisdom of the world lived in one place. On the edge of the Nile, where desert met the sea, a city of marble and fire rose from dust, Alexandria. Inside it stood a sanctuary unlike any temple, a library raised to guard memory, to bind scattered minds into one. Here, words replaced weapons and questions outranked kings. Scholars arrived from every horizon: Greeks, Egyptians, Persians, Indians, Jews, each carrying a fragment of the universe on fragile papyrus. Scribes worked through the night, copying every scroll seized from incoming ships. Originals returned, knowledge kept. Every letter mattered. Every margin note was a spark. They measured Earth's circumference and weighed the air. They mapped the heavens, counted the wandering stars, and drew the first reliable coastlines. They opened bodies to learn their hidden laws. They tested light with polished bronze and polished thought. Some whispered that if a person could read long enough, the library would reveal the order of creation itself. To those who entered, the building was made not of stone, but of silence and flame, the silence of attention, the flame of truth. Footsteps softened on mosaics. Oil lamps hummed. Dust hung like constellations between columns. A reader bent over a scroll and felt time pause. 500,000 texts, myths, epics, treatises, plays, letters, the memory of the world under one roof. What was lost elsewhere found shelter here. What was disputed was tested. What was new was translated. What was forgotten was taught to breathe again. Here, humanity touched something like eternity and believed knowledge could defeat oblivion. But light draws envy, and order gathers storms. Even the brightest flame must one day meet the wind. And far beyond the harbor, a rumor was already walking toward the gate. Alexandria did not pray for victory. It prepared for it with ink, lists of ships, catalogs of authors, maps of trade winds, tools for rulers who preferred reason to rumor, proof to pride. Here, curiosity was law. Day after day, Alexandria burned with a different kind of fire, the fire of discovery. In the marble halls of the library, men did not fight for gold or gods, but for truth itself. Here, the world learned to question, to measure, to record. Every thought written on papyrus was a spark that reached beyond death. Within these walls, knowledge became alive. The library was not silent. It breathed, whispered, debated. Scholars gathered beneath the tall columns, arguing about the nature of the soul, the movement of the heavens, and the mystery of number and proportion. Each disagreement gave birth to another idea, and even failure was sacred because it meant that the world could still be understood. Archimedes calculated how water could move mountains. Eratosthenes measured the earth with nothing but sunlight and shadow, and his answer was nearly perfect. Herophilus traced the pathways of the human body and found the pulse of life. Callimachus created the first true catalog, a map of every written thought known to man. Others, whose names were never kept, worked in endless rows, copying, comparing, translating, preserving. They believed they were saving the future from forgetting itself. By night, the city glowed with oil lamps and ink. The air shimmered with heat, dust, and the faint scent of parchment. From the harbor, sailors could see the library shining above the waves like a beacon of pure reason, a light built by human hands. It was said that even the sea itself grew quieter near its walls, as if listening to the hum of minds at work. The library became more than a place. It became a promise. It taught that knowledge could outlive kings, that words could cross empires and outlast stone. It was humanity's first attempt to speak directly to eternity, to prove that thought could conquer time. But light does not exist without shadow. And in every age of brilliance, there waits a silence that hung outside the library's doors, patient, invisible, waiting for its turn to speak.
For centuries, Alexandria believed the light would never fade, but wisdom does not die in a single moment. It rots slowly, devoured from within. The first cracks were not carved by war, but by fear. New rulers came and demanded loyalty over truth. Philosophers were told what they could think, what they could write, what they must forget. The library began to change. Scrolls once opened in the name of knowledge were now sealed in the name of order. Some called it protection, others called it silence. Ink dried on the desk while soldiers guarded the doors, and outside its marble walls, the world began to tremble. Rome had come, not as a student, but as a master. Its banners rose over the harbor, and Alexandria, the city of thought, became a prize in another empire's game. The flame of reason still burned, but the air had grown thin. Scribes now wrote in secret, afraid of their own words. To think too freely had become an act of rebellion. Yet still, a few refused to bow. Among them were the heirs of the ancient philosophers, men and women who believed that truth was eternal, even when men forgot it. They whispered among the shelves, hiding banned texts in hollow walls, copying forbidden lines by the dim glow of lamps. Their fingers shook, not from age, but from the fear of discovery. And then came the mobs. Religion replaced reason, faith became weapon, and ignorance found its army. To burn a scroll was to please a god. To silence a scholar was to defend heaven. The streets that once echoed with debate now screamed with fire. The library stood still, proud, wounded, waiting. Its marble cracked under the noise of men who could not read what they destroyed. The sea wind carried the smell of smoke, and the light that had guided the world began to flicker. In that fading glow, Alexandria understood a cruel truth. What knowledge creates, fear will always try to erase.
It began without warning, as all endings do. A spark in the night, a careless torch, a command shouted by men who feared what they could not understand. At first, the wind carried only the scent of smoke. Then, the sky itself began to glow. The library, once a monument to silence, found its voice in fire. Flames ran along the shelves like living creatures, devouring words faster than any mind could read them. Scrolls curled and screamed, their letters rising as sparks into the darkness above. From the harbor, people watched in silence. They saw not a building burn, but history itself. The light that once guided ships through fog now blinded the sea. Ash drifted over the water like snow, the snow of memory, falling on those who would never understand what was lost. Inside, scholars tried to save what they could. They ran through corridors of smoke, arms filled with papyrus, eyes streaming with tears. Some fell beside the shelves they had served their entire lives. Others threw manuscripts into wells, hoping the water would keep them safe. But the fire was patient, hungry, unstoppable. Every sound became the same. The crack of wood, the roar of collapsing roofs, the soft sigh of dying words. Ink turned to dust, parchment to light. It was said the blaze lasted for days and that the heat could be felt from miles away. When dawn came, the library was gone. Only blackened stone remained, and in the ashes lay fragments of names that no one could read anymore. The city stood still, as if the world itself had paused to mourn the death of its own memory. For centuries, men would argue who had done it, a general, a mob, an empire, or time itself. But the truth is simpler and more terrible. The fire was not born in a torch. It was born in fear. And fear, once lit, never truly dies. When the fire finally died, the world became quieter. Smoke drifted across the harbor, turning the sunrise to ash. The city that once hummed with voices of scholars now whispered with ghosts. Charred papyrus lay scattered through the streets like dead leaves. Men walked among the ruins and found nothing worth looting, for gold had never lived here, only thought. The library was gone, but its emptiness had weight. Even the waves broke softer against the shore, as if the sea itself grieved the loss of what it once reflected. Columns cracked, marble blackened, and on their surfaces the heat had carved strange new symbols, the final language of fire. Those who survived tried to remember. They wrote from memory what little remained, fragments of poems, broken equations, pieces of stars. But memory is a fragile architect. The more they rebuilt, the more they realized how much had vanished. For 1,000 years, darkness followed. The wisdom of centuries was scattered across continents, a scroll here, a line there, a whisper surviving in monasteries and deserts. Humanity learned again to fear what it could not explain. Science became heresy. Doubt became crime. And the light that once filled Alexandria was replaced by a silence that lasted an age. Yet even silence remembers. Somewhere, a single copy survived. A word, a formula, a map. From those fragments, the world would one day begin again. But it would never be the same. The chain of knowledge had been broken. And in that break, a question remained. One the fire could not burn away. How many times must we lose ourselves before we finally learn to remember? Centuries have passed, yet the smoke of Alexandria still drifts through time. The library is gone, but its fire remains, not in the ashes, but in us. Every book written, every question asked, is an echo of that ancient flame refusing to die. We rebuild, we forget, we rebuild again. Each generation lights its own torch, believing the darkness will never return. But knowledge is fragile, and memory burns as easily as paper. The fire never ended, it simply changed hands.